Right, let's talk about ataxia and how you first became aware of it.
Yeah, so for my sins, I was blissfully unaware of what ataxia was until I met a family friend of ours. Her name was Emily, a beautiful young lady, and she had ataxia. And then I became aware of what it is and what it was and what it meant to be and how to live with it. And a few years later, I did a show called Britain's Got Talent, and I was very lucky. I came second on that show. I lost to a dog. Thanks for bringing it up. I just got over it, but 2015 that was. And through doing that, I was able to use the little bit of profile I'd been given to help with certain charities. And one of which that I got in contact, or that got in contact was Ataxia UK. And yeah, years later, well, nearly 7 years later now, here we are. Yeah, but it all came about, because of a family friend called Emily Adams, who's a beautiful young lady who's in a better place now.
And over the 7 years, have you taken an interest in how the research is going, how treatments are progressing, how people are adapting with ataxia? Because things are moving at quite a pace.
Yeah, no, it's. I had the joy of meeting some of the main people who are behind pushing your research forward. And I went to the office in London and I sat down and I, like I said, I knew Emily had ataxia and I knew sort of roughly what it was. But to listen to sort of mainly the misconceptions that the general public have around it, that's what really struck me about it, was that someone might be talking and they might be unaware, and someone might think, oh, that person, dare I say, they think, oh, maybe they've had too much to drink, or maybe they're doing something they shouldn't do, and it's not the case at all. And it's for me, it's the big thing that struck me was just to try to educate people in the sense of what it is and what it means and what people are suffering with. And obviously, as time goes on and research develops and more money is spent, educating others and also developing, an understanding of what the condition is, it can only be a good thing. So anything I can do in any small way to play any small part in it is a privilege, and it's something that I will do wholeheartedly whenever I can.
Oh, it's great to hear. The thing about going to these ataxia conferences and meeting people is that I come away completely gobsmacked at, I don't want to use the word courage because people don't like that word to be used, but it seems to somebody like you and myself who take it for granted we can walk across a room or we can walk up steps. The effort it takes for some people to do that, people with one of the ataxias, is incredible. And I'm just wondering, and I often think about this myself, whether I would have that kind of inner strength to be able to do that. Were you struck when you meet people who have ataxia just by the effort that they take just for everyday life?
Yeah, I am. And if anybody isn't, then you sort of, I feel like you have to question like what that person sort of values and holds, because like once you understand like the condition and what people are dealing with, how can you not be impressed? How can you not be in awe of someone dealing with a condition like this? And like you said, not simple things, but things we all take for granted. Some people are lucky enough not to have to worry about just what we would consider the simplest of things. And when that's a big challenge for someone to achieve, and then they do that, that's incredible. And if you can't take your hat off and be in awe of that, then I think, well, dare I say, I think you need to have a look at yourself, because you can't not be. And I'm the same as you are, Paul. It's the sense that when you meet people, and having had a personal experience with it, when you see that and you see someone achieving something they've worked so hard towards, I can't compare it to anything in my life. So what do I do for a living? I go on stage and I try and tell jokes and I do a few magic tricks. That's what I do. That my biggest hardship is someone might not laugh at my joke. Someone might not like the trick that I perform, which in the greater scheme of things really is nothing. So yeah, I cannot be in any more awe, or I couldn't hold any more respect for anyone who has to deal with something like that, who has to battle with this on a daily basis. And if you meet anyone who says otherwise, you send them to me. I can't do much about it, but I might put a spell on them or something. I try,
saw them in half.
Exactly. And then I won't put them back together. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. So send them over, we'll cut them in half, then we'll leave them, and then we'll ask them to walk across the room. Do you know what I mean? Then we'll see.
Sounds a great idea. And the other thing about meeting people at the Ataxia conferences is I think there's a temptation with people who maybe dabble in finding out about ataxia is that they lump everyone together. But once you meet people, everyone's an individual. They have their own individual challenges, their own individual ways of coping. We have something at the conference each year called It Works For Me, where people with ataxia talk about how they get through the day and the shortcuts they use and what works for them. And I think there's a great danger with any form of medical problem that people just lump that together and that together and that together. And we forget about the individual often, don't we?
I couldn't agree anymore. It's like if you look at any other condition, if you were to look at, let's say, autism, for example, as a condition, there's a million different, please forgive my terminology, but let's say strains. There's a million different conditions. There's a million different ways that people are dealing with different things, and it's the same with ataxia. And there are many people suffering many different conditions. And everyone has to find their own way of dealing with it, and that in itself has to be applauded. Because how can you or I or a doctor or anyone say to someone who's suffering with something that we can't possibly ever comprehend? I can say, oh, I feel really sorry for someone, and I really do, I genuinely do, but I can't ever possibly experience what they're going through. So for, like you said, for such a broad range of conditions, for want of a better word, and again, please excuse my misterminology, but like you said, you can't not be struck, because every single person that you meet has a different struggle. Now, you may be having the same sort of similar condition as someone else, but everyone's got an individual battle. We're all struggling something. Like I said, mine is that I'm desperately struggling for people to laugh at my terrible jokes. You know what I mean? And that's the biggest hardship of my life. And I'm so incredibly lucky that is the only thing I have to worry about. And it's like you can't but be in awe of everybody, because like you said, no two people are the same anyway. No two conditions really are the same, and no two people's experiences are the same. So when you see people, like you said, whether it be called, whether you call it coping mechanisms or the way that people deal with things,
When you first walked out on stage, where did you get that determination with that? Either this was going to be your career, or you were willing to put yourself on the line and say, hey, this is me, I'm funny, or I'm magic, or whatever. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because I think it really comes from within. Like, it comes from within you. So for example, for me, I was very lucky. So when I did my audition for Britain's Got Talent, that was in 2015, and I'd been performing professionally for about 11 years at that time. So I had an experience of performing for an audience. I'd done a few bits on television before. I'd done shows in theatres, but I'd never had that experience of walking into a place knowing that I'm going to speak some words and I'm going to do some moves, and in 4 minutes there are people watching me that could change my life forever. Same sort of thing. We can sort of parallel it with this. Everyone has their own sort of struggles. But in answer to your question, it's not something that you can't go to the shop and buy, like courage. You can't go to the shop and buy experience. And it's again, I'll parallel with this. You can only do it by doing it. So for me, if I want to do a show in front of 1,000 people, the only way I can get not nervous is by keep doing it over and over and over and over again. And you have to want it, because there are going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. There's going to be days where you try your hardest and things don't work out. There's going to be days where you're probably not in the right frame of mind, but somehow you get away with it. And it's the same in all walks of life. My experiences, it just comes from within, and a love of, like for me, it's a love of what I'm doing. And a desire to try to be the best that I can be, which I think is the same for everyone. We all try our best to be the best we can. That's it.
Mm. When younger people come to me and they say, how do we get into broadcasting? I say, well, there's one thing that you should learn right away before I give you any other hints or tips or contacts or whatever. And that is, you've got to learn that no has to be heard as not yet. Don't take no as a no, it's just a not yet. And that takes a lot of knocks to actually learn that, to get to the stage where, okay, somebody's just said, no, we're not giving you the job. If you hear it as not
Yeah.
yet, you've got that resilience to go back. Would you have had that resilience within you had the Britain's Got Talent thing gone wrong for you? Do you think you would have had the reserves of whatever it is to pick yourself up?
I think I would. And the only reason I can say that is because I've had that before. So I was up for a couple of famous English TV magicians who have become very successful and had television shows, who shall remain nameless for the sake of this. It was down to me and one of them to get a TV series in the UK. And I had the same thing. It was like somebody decided that, yeah, thank you very much, but no, it's not right for now. And what they said, it's exactly the same thing. I talk to young magicians a lot, and it's just because someone doesn't see your value at that time, it doesn't mean you don't have a worth. It just means that in that context, that person who's making that decision has decided on something else. And exactly as you said, it's not no. Add on a T and add on a yet at the end of it, because that's what it means. And if you want it, just keep going, because there are, history is littered with success stories that started with numerous attempts to get there that they never got there. And it was like, I got to do the one thing I've been waiting for years. So when I did my Britain's Got Talent thing, and I came second, I lost to a dog of all things, but I love dogs. I was the highest placed male standing speaking actor. Technically, I was the most talented human in 2015, according to the Great British Public. I didn't vote for that. And we had the newspapers come to my house. And someone said to me, "Oh, can we do this interview?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And he said, and I got to answer this question, which we waited for years. He goes, "How does it feel to be an overnight success?" And I said, "It feels absolutely fantastic. I just wish it hadn't taken 16 years for you to come to ask me the question." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, I was just explaining exactly that." It was like, I've been for auditions and I've done shows and I've had opportunities and I've tried things, and some worked, some didn't. Sometimes someone thought someone else was right, and other times it was almost me and it wasn't quite. But it was, if you want something enough, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Like, no. But having said that, like, a mate of mine gave me a really good piece of advice. He said, if you want to try something, if you like magic for me, for example, or I'll flip it onto that football analogy. Let's say you're the most talented footballer in the world and you go for a trial and you don't get the contract with Manchester United, or you try again and you don't get one with Tottenham. It doesn't mean you can't work in football. It just means, unfortunately, the people who are in charge of deciding whether you should play or not have decided it's not in your favor. However, what if you were a journalist and you wrote about football? What if you were a coach and you taught football? Look at Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho was Bobby Robson's translator at Barcelona because they had some Brazilian players who spoke Portuguese. That was his big break as a translator. And then you look at him years later and he's won this, he's won that, he's won this. Everyone knows his name. And it was like, I'm sure he tried for positions as a coach. I'm sure he was knocked back. I've never met the man. I've never spoken to him, but I can guarantee that probably happened. But he loved football and he got in as a translator. And then years later, the world knows his name. So, like you said, it's not now. It's just not yet. Do you know what I mean?
And one of the things, going back to the determination for people, especially people with ataxia, one of the things that they have, please God, is they have a support network around them. Do you work alone, or do you have somebody that you go to either to help you write the gags or come up with illusions or take an idea you've had and maybe take it a different direction?
Yeah, so in my world, what I've learned is that no one is a success on their own. It's impossible, right? You can't be. So even if it's as simple as, let's say you're the funniest comedian in the world, right? Everyone wants to come and see your show. No problem. You want to do a tour? Amazing. We'll do it. Do you know how to book a venue? No. Okay, let's get a promoter in to book the venues for you. So you've got one person who's booking the venue. Do you know how to sell tickets and promote it? No. I know how to tell jokes. Fine. Let's get a promoter in. Okay. Are you good with the legal side of things, with contracts to make sure that, all the money that you're owed is paid you? No. Okay. Let's get a lawyer involved as well. Okay, brilliant. Are you good? Have you got an agent to do it? No. So immediately, that's 4 people who are just helping you just to facilitate what you're doing. So yeah, for me, in terms of actual physical performing, just going out and doing shows, I need someone to help me with all the paperwork, like the legality stuff to get there, the logistics of organizing, like simple things like sound and light and music and whatnot. When I'm on stage, if I do a touring show, I've got at least 3 or 4 people helping me. So yeah, in terms of the shows, I have at least 5 or 6. And in terms of creative stuff, I like to think that I'm funny, and I like to think all my ideas are great and all my tricks are great. They're not. They're not. I think they're great, but I'm not performing to an audience of me's. I wish I was, as vain as I am. So yeah, in answer to that part of the question, whenever I'm working on new bits, I have got 3 or 4 people whose opinions I value everyone's opinion, but 3 or 4 people, when I'm coming up with stuff originally, I'll say, this is what I'm thinking. Donald Trump has done this today. I think that could be quite a funny joke. What if I did that with this trick and I do that? And someone will go, well, the joke's funny, but the trick's not very clear. Like, I don't really understand what you're doing. I've got no problem, so I'll work on that. Okay, yeah, the trick's great, but the joke's not funny. I'm like, okay, I'll work on that. So yeah, I have 3 or 4 people that help me with the actual creative process. I don't think anyone can be successful in anything without help, without a team, without a network. And like we said, I think so much of life, it doesn't matter really what you do. We're all living, and everything parallels everything. So whether I be doing a stupid card trick on a stage, or whether it be someone like we're talking now, someone with Ataxia and their family around them, it is the same. It's just slightly different in terms of, like, dare I call it the performance or whatever it is. We're all dependent on others. And sadly, I'm dependent more than most, I will say.
Yeah. So the moral is never avoid or turn down any help that's offered, because we all need a support network. But that doesn't just go for somebody with ataxia. It goes for whoever's maybe living with them, caring for them, helping them out in whatever way. The more that a network of support is built up around anyone with ataxia, I think it's got to be a great thing. Jamie, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much. I look forward to 1 year meeting you at a conference. In the meantime, I wish you every success, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everyone. Thinking of you all.